This is Ron York. Welcome to this presentation on the state of the United States economy, Tuesday, December the 21st, 2010. What I want to talk to you about is the misconception that most people have that the economy is currently in a state of depression or recession. It's not. There's not one shred of evidence to indicate that. In fact, all the evidence and the data and documents show exactly the opposite. The only thing that's keeping this misconception going is mostly talk radio and editorial pages of newspapers. I don't imagine we can do much about them. They have a right to be wrong, and I certainly defend that right for them to be wrong. There are two main indicators that really show us where we are currently in the economy. One is gross domestic product. Gross domestic product is the total goods and services produced in this country in a 12-month period. It's everything. We do know that we have inflation and we have population growth. To control for the population growth, we take the gross domestic product and we divide it by the population, where we come up to a per capita number. In other words, that tells us how much we're producing per man, woman, and child. To adjust for inflation, we use an inflation deflator. It's not the consumer price index, because it's limited just to retail sales. We use what's called the gross domestic product implicit price deflator. And so when we take that and we apply it to the raw numbers, we come up with this first chart here. Look at that chart. It starts down there at 0, goes up to 50,000, and the year it starts with is 1929. Now, the reason we use 1929 is because that's the first year that we have good data. Prior to that, it's not very good, but fortunately for us, that's a pretty good place to start. In 1929, we were producing about $9,000 worth of goods and services per man, woman, and child, and that's in today's dollars. That's not in the dollars then. And today we're not quite there, but we're about $48,000 per man, woman, and child. So you can see we're producing over 5 times the amount that we were producing in 1929. Now, that line is not a straight line. It's got a lot of ripples in it, and those ripples represent recessions. There's been 13 recessions since 1929. The worst one was obviously the 29 recession. The second worst was 1946, right after World War II, where we kind of, you can see where production spiked up. And the third worst one is the one that we just experienced, which lasted from the summer of 2008 through the summer of 2009. Now, one of the things you need to keep in mind when you're looking at a graphical illustration like this, and that is we have the same problem with our charts as the maps we had back in grade school. Remember the Mercator projection, flat map of the world, how big Greenland looked and how big Australia looked, and then of course countries right near the equator look small. And that's because the further you get away from the equator, the more exaggerated the projection was, because it didn't have a way to account for the curvature of the earth. We have the same problem with this chart here, and that is a 5% decline at the top of the chart is 5 times as great as a 5% decline at the bottom of the chart. Now, I could have taken that out of there by converting this into a logarithm, but then I would have had to go into lengthy explanation of what a logarithm was, so I skipped that, and we'll just go with the raw numbers. But you can see where we're at. It's a pretty straight up line. That's pretty much has been the history of our country over the last 100 years. We have these business cycles, or we do have the downturns. They used to be about 4 years apart. Now they're about 10 years apart. That's because we know how to control inventory better than we did in the past. Let's look at the second chart here. Now that's where it's the same numbers of the other chart, but we've just moved in and just look at the very tail end of the chart. And you can see where it starts in the fourth quarter, 2008. You can show we declined all the way down into the summer 2009, and since then we have grown, and we've had 5 quarters in a row of growth. And in fact, the quarter we're in right now, the fourth quarter, will probably be a very brisk growth quarter. Now, a lot of people would tell you that we're still in a recession, but we're not. They don't realize we've been at it for a long time. And in fact, 2010 may very well be the second best year in the history of this country, or if not, it'll be the third. And I can guarantee it 2011 will be the best year this country's ever had economically. So these are the raw numbers. You can look them up yourself, check it out for yourself. We're not in a recession. We hadn't been in a recession since July or August 2009. Let's look at this next chart, it's retail sales. Somewhat the same story. Retail sales represents the demand side of the equation, whereas gross domestic product represents the supply side of the equation. But we have the same problem with the effect of the higher up the chart, the more exaggerated the downturn, the more exaggerated the upturn is. But you can see it's a pretty well continuous growth. Let's look at the fourth chart. Fourth chart is the same thing as the third chart, except that we've honed in right on the last part of the scale. And you can see where we started was in August 2008, and that's when the economy peaked out. You can see it declined down through August, September 2009, and then since then it's grown consistently, and it's going very briskly at this point in time. One of the things that people kind of get hung up on is this unemployment rate. And let me explain that to you, why that unemployment continues to be high. Unemployment is the last economic number to recover during a business cycle. And here's the reason why. When things start slowing down, inventories start to build up in places, plants, wholesalers, retailers, even individuals, consumers. Their cupboards build up in inventory. And at some point in time, people look around and see there's a problem, and they throw the brakes on. That's certainly what happened this last recession. But when the economy starts to pick back up, the employers do not immediately start hiring more people. What they do is they go into a mode of trying to cover the increases with overtime. Now, one other phenomenon has occurred during that period of time, and that is that we have pretty well wrung all the inefficiencies out of the economy, and productivity's gone up quite a bit. It's only after we've absorbed all the productivity gains and we've used overtime to its maximum limit does the employer then start hiring new people back. So that's the reason that unemployment lags behind. It happens every single business cycle, not just this one. Now, if you got some questions you want to ask me or comments, you can certainly send them to my email. My email is rjy@policepay.net. I welcome any comments you have, and I look forward to speaking with you again. And until the next time I talk to you, good day.